I am going to wait and see if a couple people are able to hop on. See till I have wait and see for who's coming. I need more coffee. I went and got Starbucks because I needed coffee. So I'm gonna wait a couple minutes and see. There's somebody. Hi. Okay. So I wanted today to do another live Mental Monday. I've done one other live Mental Monday, and I actually have some points I want to make today. I have a plan, which doesn't usually happen anytime I've ever done a live stream. So this is a first. I want to take the time to talk about ways that we can help friends that we have that are struggling with mental illness in some way. That can look like a disorder, that can just look like having a hard time and struggling. It can look a lot of different ways. And I feel like all of these ways that I have that you can try to help somebody or try to be a support for them and be there for them kind of apply to just mental health in general, not necessarily one disorder over another. Um, I'm sure you could specify this to whichever issue they're struggling with. And I feel like everybody could use this because I feel like everybody has some kind of mental health struggle that they deal with. It can be on a different scale and compared to other people, but I feel like everybody has something. And so I feel like this is just being a good friend. But this kind of applies when, particularly, you have a friend that is even more so struggling, that has a harder struggle with it than, I don't want to say normal, but then is common. I don't even know if that's the right word. Just more so than the other people around them. And so I kind of found 5 ways that I feel like it's a good way to help yourself be a good friend. And if you're able to be intentional about these things, or even just have them in mind as you're approaching friendship with them, it can really help and you can really up your game as far as being a support for them and being able to be there and know the right way to handle everything that they're going to throw at you. Because somebody that is struggling with that, if they're struggling with it on a higher scale, they're going to be throwing a lot at you, whether it's in the function of your friendship or just they're telling you everything they're feeling and going through. One of the functions in a friendship is having somebody to talk to. And so if they're going through really heavy stuff, it can be really heavy stuff they're trying to talk to you about. And you have to be able to know your own boundaries with, okay, how much am I actually able to handle? Am I able to? And is this too much, or can I do this? And what would doing this look like? And that's going to be different probably in every case. But I found a couple ways that I feel like would really help. I like lists, so I made a list. And the first one was to just educate yourself on it. Whatever they struggle with, whether it's a personality disorder or it could be depression or anything, whatever the particular main area of struggle is for them. Teach yourself about it, educate yourself about it, learn more about it so that you understand what they're going through a little better. That doesn't mean become an expert, and that doesn't mean psychoanalyze them to the nth degree and just put every little piece of them under a microscope so you understand it. But if you know nothing about borderline personality disorder and they have borderline personality disorder, maybe read up on it a bit. For multiple reasons, I feel like that's a good thing because you will know more of what's going on in their head, along with you'll know more of what you're getting into in the future. So you can prepare for it better and not be like blindsided by it when issues come up. So don't go overboard. I am a really, really excellent overwhelmer of myself. Like, I'm really good at doing information overload on myself. And that is one tip that it's easy to do that with if you're that kind of person, to just read and read and read and read, or watch every YouTube video on it or whatever, and overload your brain with so much information to process. And that's not helpful in any situation. So take it slow, take it easy, and just learn a little more about it. And be willing to ask them questions to better understand how they're feeling too. So that doesn't mean just reading what other people are saying about how they might be feeling, but actually asking them, like, hey, what's going through your head right now? Like, what are you feeling? What are you most hurt by, or what are you most upset about, or what is your biggest struggle right now? And let them explain it to you, and I'm sure that will tell you a lot. So that was my first idea, and I feel like that's probably the first thing anybody should do, whether it's themselves, although be even more cautious with information overload with that one, or a friend, and trying to figure out how to help your friend. So send in questions if you have any questions or thoughts on my tips I have. That's the fun part about this being a live stream. It can be a conversation, and that's what I love about this whole community on YouTube, being able to talk about different things that we're interested in and share. So send in questions if you have any, or just thoughts on these ideas. The second one, the second tip that I had was be a good listener. And that just means pay attention to their perspective. It might not be the same as yours, and they're having the experiences, so they're more able to try to put into words what's going on. And I think that's important to pay attention to, because the biggest thing that can help that person is them feeling free to actually express how they're feeling, them feeling comfortable saying how they're feeling, and feeling like they're not going to get judged, or it's not going to be brushed off or not heard and listened to. And they want to feel like they're heard. And I think that's an important part of feeling open to working on whatever it is, or open to getting help with whatever it is feeling comfortable and safe in sharing that, because that's a really scary thing. And even if you're not doing therapy with them, just sitting there and listening is a huge help. It's a huge way for them to release what's going on in their head. And that's always a nice thing. And I feel like everybody needs that. Everybody should have their person they can not unload on, because you never want to just spew everything and not pay attention to how that's affecting the other person. But that they have their person that's safe for them, that they can go to and talk to, and feel totally comfortable that that person's not going to judge them, that that person isn't going to go and tell anybody else, and that they are going to be heard when they tell that person how they feel. And it can feel like you're doing nothing. Like, honestly, when I was in high school, my friend always joked that I was a teenage therapist, because she would just tell me everything, because she didn't have anybody else to talk to. And I honestly felt like I was not able to make as big of an impact, because I wasn't a therapist. Like, I had not even taken a psychology class at one point in that time period. So I had no idea what to say or how to help her. I had no idea how to explain to her why it happened. And I felt like that would help her, for her to be able to understand, but that's really not the point. And she kind of constantly had to remind me, like, no, even just you being there and listening, like just letting me tell you all of this and express how I feel about it, express frustration with it, express hurt by it, is a huge help. And until I took some more psychology classes, that's still not the end of what needed to happen in any way. But it didn't do nothing. It wasn't in vain. It did help her in those moments be able to process a little without repercussions, without feeling judged, without having to worry about the other person's thoughts on it. She knew she could trust me, and it helped her to get it off of her chest. So don't discount being a good listener, because I feel like that plays a part in everything, in helping somebody or being supportive to somebody, whether it's with a mental illness or not. Just being able to listen to somebody and help them feel heard is huge. So that's my second point. If you guys have any ideas, leave them in the comments. So the third one I had is ask them what they need. So that's kind of part of what I meant when I said, don't be afraid to ask them. Like, don't be afraid to ask them what they're feeling, and ask them to maybe at least attempt to try to explain how they're feeling to you to help you understand a little better. But also ask them what they think would be helpful for them. Ask them what they're feeling like they need. And some people are going to be able to express that and put it into words, and some aren't. Some might be really good at that. Others, you might not get as much, because some people, there's some struggles or some situations where it's just really hard to express what you even need. And when you're feeling overwhelmed by it, your brain just like shuts off. I know I've experienced that in overwhelm, where I'm just like, I don't even know. Like, I can't even put that into words. I know I need help. I know I need something with this, but I don't know how to explain it at all. And that is a good place to start, though. It's a good place to say, hey, what can I do that would be helpful? Or if you're thinking something might be helpful, saying, hey, would this help you or not? Or would that be too much? And I think that's good communication, and that gives them another opportunity to express themselves in how they're feeling and what they need. And that's just being a good friend, I feel like, is being able to communicate that and be willing to go out of your comfort zone and ask those questions and push a little more, instead of like, oh, I'll wait for them to ask. Some cases that's a good thing. Some, it'll help them to be able to express it if you ask them, because they will feel like that opens a door for it to be okay for them to. And some people have a hard time asking for help, and that can kind of give them the permission they're looking for, even if you feel like they should already feel like they have that permission. So that was my third one. That was third. My fourth one was, don't assume you know what it's like. Even if you have a different mental health struggle, so you feel like you know what mental health struggles are like, each struggle, especially in the world of disorders, they can be so different, and they can affect your life in so many different ways, even when they're similar. Borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder, they're different. They're very different in some ways and very similar in others. So it can be easy for somebody that has one to say, oh, I know what that's like. But they're actually very different in how they affect your life, and they're very different in how you feel and how you are thinking, like what your mindset can be. And even approaching treatment is extremely different between those two. And then it kind of it can even be as nuanced as in depression. Just general depression doesn't necessarily look the exact same as like postpartum depression or seasonal affective disorder. Those can look different in how you approach them because they're different sources and they're different manifestations of it. So they're being played out in a little bit of a different way, even though they all have depression in it. And even though they all have that core like struggle, everybody can respond to it differently and it can manifest itself in different ways. And the source of a disorder, whether it's the same disorder or not, can change a lot about how it affects that person and how you approach treatment and what may or may not help them. I know we're not going for treatment in this, but I feel like understanding where it's coming from changes how you view it, just because the source makes a difference, because that would be, it's changing why they feel that way. And in some cases, like seasonal affective disorder is an extremely different source of depression from postpartum depression or even just general depression. And even in general depression, finding where the depression is coming from is important because that could be the difference between are medications helpful or not. Because if it's a hormonal thing, or if it's a not hormone really, maybe hormone. If it's a chemical imbalance that is contributing to it, that would very much be helped by medication, and medication becomes a more important part of treatment in that scenario than just depression from a traumatic event or something. They're very, very different.